Commission, I'd like to welcome you to the Fall Business Breakfast. We are happy to see everyone in person and people on Zoom. As you all know, in May, we took a pivot. For the first time ever, we did a virtual breakfast, and we heard from Governor Lamont and Dr. Aganobi and talked about what's going on with COVID and their projections for the future and got some vision. It was a huge success, partly because of our amazing team, our IT team, and Rose and her team. We had about 100 people, and we were able to ask Governor Lamont some really, I think, important questions. We're taking another pivot this morning, which I think is required nowadays across the board. You have to be creative. We're doing both in person and Zoom. And there's a reason that we chose to do this. There was a lot of thinking that went into deciding whether or not to meet today. The first, quite frankly, is we miss seeing people, and we felt if we could do it safely, in 37-degree weather with fireplaces, we were willing to try and still have the Zoom option. But the second, which is actually even more significant, is we want to support our Farmington businesses. We want to support our local businesses. We've had a governor that we all feel has done his best to make things safe and try to support businesses. But the businesses, the small businesses especially, are having a hard time. We get it. And especially in hospitality. And we had an opportunity to support a local Farmington business that has been so good to us for so many years, the Farmington Club. The past 10 years, Farmington Club has been hosting these breakfasts and has been top-notch service, but also so creative. And we wanted to celebrate them, and we wanted to come and visit. They've been working with us, honestly, past 2 months, Rose, to make sure this worked, to make sure people felt safe, people felt comfortable, and they had to be creative to the last second, including the heating lamps and the fireplace. So first thing, we'd like to take a moment and say thank you to the Farmington Club and the crowd here. If we can just clap and appreciate Farmington Club. We're also supporting another Farmington institution, Nutmeg TV. As you can see, they're videoing today. Nutmeg TV, as most of you know, is public access TV. They're located in our town of Farmington. They service 8 different towns around here. And they will be videoing it, and it will be both on their website as well as on their public access TV. So thank you for your partnership too. And need to thank our team, which has been amazing throughout all of this quirky COVID stuff. First and foremost, Brian in the back with bandana. And Todd, thank you for the IT support. May would never have happened, but for Brian right by our side helping us with the virtual. Anna and Devin, I assume they're in the other room. They invent planning. Again, thank you so much. And the leader of our team, and honestly the champion of everything Farmington business, Rose. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rose has been working tirelessly since, and she was working tirelessly, but since March, this has been complicated, and we all had many conversations with Rose, and she's just doing everything she can to support Farmington and Farmington business, and I'm actually very impressed, and we're so, so lucky to have Rose. Thank you. And actually, I'm looking for Mike. This would never be possible but for our sponsorship. People's United Bank is, thank you, CJ, I see a point. Oh, there's Mike. Mike Scheinhofer, the Senior Vice President of People's United Bank, is our champion. Especially when there was a change up with the banks, Mike was the one to make sure that People's United Bank would continue to support this breakfast. Mike is probably the most well-known person in this room. He's a Farmington resident, he's a banker, he's a champion of this breakfast, of Farmington business, and of the Economic Development Commission. So I asked Mike to come on up. I know there's a whole COVID spread that I'm supposed to stay 6 feet apart from you. Let me shift away from you.
Good morning, everybody. It is great to be back in person. And Rose, thank you for scheduling this. What a great venue. John Trainer, you're going to hear from an amazing speaker. I'm going to call this John's first fireside chat. So the heat lamps work well, the fireplace works well, but as Amy mentioned, we are so happy to continue to sponsor these breakfasts. And when you look back, the last time we were here in person was in January, and what an 8 months it has been. John will probably allude to some of that, but what an 8 months it's been. And back in March and April, many of you probably either went through the PPP process or advised people through the PPP process. And I know there's other bankers in the room, so I want to thank them as well. We're not saving lives as bankers, but we did feel that we were on the front line as far as helping people get through the economic turmoil. And, we were on the front line of the stimulus plan. So I had people on my team, in the Hartford team, literally working around the clock, okay, to provide people with PPP funds. This was the first round where we didn't know if the PPP funds would be exhausted in hours, days, whatever, weeks. As it turned out, there was a second round of PPP, but the first round, I had people working all weekend, literally around the clock. I was getting emails at 4 in the morning. I was getting thank you emails from customers at 7 in the morning the next day once they got their SBA authorization number. So it was just an amazing time, and I know the other bankers went through it as well. But we at Peoples helped 18,500 small businesses and commercial customers to have their PPP funds processed and receive those funds to the tune of $2.5 billion. I mean, it's just amazing when you think about it. And I like to say, I didn't have to tell my people to work through the night because they realized how important it was, because every PPP loan, every dollar that was out there was supporting and preserving somebody's job. So just an amazing job by our folks. We've got an incredible team. The other bankers out there on the front line, thank you as well, because truly we are all in this together. And it's great to be here at the Farmington Club where we're supporting a local business. I stopped at Dunkin' on the way to support local business and also to warm up. But we are tough New Englanders, very tough, so the chill doesn't bother us. Just a couple words about John Trainer. He has done a number of Zoom calls, webinars for our commercial customers. You're in for a treat because he crystallizes things into the most explainable terms, and he is tremendous. And I try to dial in, zoom in whenever I can to listen to John. He's a tremendous asset to our institution. So with that, I want to say thank you again for coming. It's great to see everybody in person. John did want me to mention that there will be a test at the end, and there will be some People's Bank swag. Okay, so I'll be doling it out, throwing it out. So, but from a distance. So be ready to catch a few things. But anyway, I'm gonna introduce John Trainer, our Chief Investment Officer, People's United Investment Advisors.
I am perfect. Thank you. All right, great. I was actually glad to hear Mike referred to as a champion, because within Peoples, without a doubt, he is our champion up here, our quarterback. So, Mike, thanks for everything you're doing. And I don't know if everyone saw the change to the agenda, but at the end of this, Mike is going to be leading us in COVID calisthenics. Some of us, myself included, might have put on a COVID-15, so Mike is going to help us take care of that. So I'm going to go through these slides, and as Mike said, there might be a test on one of the slides in here, so a little incentive to pay attention. So I'll go through. Let me move that back a little bit. If you take a look, I'll stand on this side. Now, I'm a rower, so I get to choose the sport. So if you take a look at this slide, it's a silly little slide about what we're going to talk about this morning. But one of the concerns that we have about the economy, the U.S., the economy on a global basis, if you think about a great varsity crew, and maybe you've seen them, we've got a lot of, you may have some of your kids that are rowers. They move in perfect synchronization. Everybody's moving back and forth, the same power. That's a great varsity crew. That's the way we have been functioning on a global basis really since the end of World War II. take a look at a novice crew, the oars are all over the place, they're flailing, the kids are screaming, all right? That's the way we've been functioning the last few years. Now, we could have a great debate about trade and all the different things, but a concern that we have as global citizens, a concern that we have as investors, as we build our portfolios, is that one of the reasons for the market to do so well, for global economies to do well, is that we have come together. Take a look, we've formed a lot of trade pacts after World War II. We said, you know what, we've got to figure out a way to work together. All right, we've been moving away from that. So as investors, again, we could have a great political conversation here this morning, but as investors, we should all basically agree, I think we need to come together. And this concerns us, and it's a theme that you're going to see picked up as we write our quarterly outlooks. We talk a lot about the global economy. One of the concerns that we have is that we're moving in the wrong direction. All right, we've got a lot of things that we need to work out. So, we put this slide together. We had some fun with putting the faces up there, but it really is meant to communicate a very important point. We need to work together. The next couple of slides, I know I showed you the last time I was up here, and I told you that these were great indicators, that these work for us. I want to tell you they failed miserably. This is the leading economic index. It's the leading index because it does a great job of forecasting recessions. Take a look at this. Normally we have a peak, it rolls over, and about 12 to 18 months later, guess what? We've got a recession. Take a look at what happened in January. In January, we actually hit a new all-time high. This just gives you a sense of how much of a shock to the system, to the global system, the COVID and the coronavirus was to us. We got no warning from any of the LEI, any of the normal statistics. One of the things that we do like, though, take a look at when this normally bottoms. All right, it normally bottoms just before the end of a recession and it moves back up. It's actually giving us a pretty good sign. So we got no heads up that there was a recession coming in January, February, or March. All right, the official start to the recession is actually the end of February. We got no heads up, but we do think this is telling us that we're on the right path, we are recovering. This is another chart I know I showed you last year. I said this is a phenomenal indicator, and it did not work. This is the average hourly earnings, and I've got two lines here, 1 at 2%, 1 at 4%. And I know I told you last time that when we get close to that 4% line, that's when the Fed starts getting nervous about inflation, and that's when they put on the brakes. Well, you'll see, 2021, back in last year, we were moving up. We actually started to move down a little bit, all right? And then look at what happened. We had a tremendous spike. Now, you would normally look at this and say, whoa, that's fantastic. Wages are increasing. That's actually a very negative sign. What that means is that in March, April, and May, the people that really suffered the most from the whole coronavirus shutdown were the low-wage workers. Waitresses and waiters in restaurants, people that work in hotels. I run a big pension for all the hotel workers up in Boston. They went from close to 90% occupancy down to maybe 25% occupancy in just a few months. Those are a lot of people that are out of work. So what we would normally want to see is this line increasing, a good sign. To show that the economy is recovering, you'll see it's actually come down. You can barely see that. Having this line come down is a good thing, because what that means is we're rehiring a lot of the waiters, a lot of the waitresses, a lot of the hotel workers, a lot of the lower wage service workers. So seeing that line come down, we'd actually love to see it come down below 4%, come back down, because that means the economy is improving. We don't think we're going to see that probably until we get a vaccine for the coronavirus. We're probably not going to be traveling as much. We're not going to have conventions and hotels until we really have that. So we'd love to see this come down, but it's probably going to happen sometime mid next year. This is one of the lines that I showed you last year, and we were nervous about this. This is the yield curve. It's one of the best stock market indicators that we've got. Last 30 years, take a look. whenever the 10-year bond, normally 10-year yields are higher than 2-year yields, whenever that 10-year is below the 2, again, that's when the Fed is trying to slow the economy. Generally 12 to 18 months later, we have a pretty bad market. Take a look, we were actually moving up, but we had a terrible market. Again, this yield curve indicator did not work very well. One of the things that we're hoping, you'll see it started to move up. It actually went negative for a couple of days last August, a little over a year ago. It's actually moved up. We would love to see interest rates move up a little bit more. Unfortunately, right now, we're stuck with very, very low rates. But if that got up to about 100%, we probably have a pretty good economy. We probably have a very good stock market. So this is still one of the good indicators we look at, but it really didn't work. The shock to the system that we saw this year was just incredible. I put this chart together, and I just think it really helps dramatize just how vicious this market decline was. Take a look at the 2000, remember the dot-com destruction? Take a look at what the market did. Look at how long it took to get to the bottom. Take a look at 2020. We had one of the most vicious and one of the shortest, fastest stock market declines in history. What normally happens is that when you have that big drop down, you get that V recovery. And we've had a tremendous rebound in the stock market. But I'm going to show you a chart in a few minutes that makes us a little bit nervous. That we actually, we don't like how the market is rallying right now. This is a chart that gives you a sense as to how important consumer confidence is. This is just the S&P 500, and what we've done is we've shaded it gray or yellow. The yellow areas, you'll see the market moves up. That's when the headlines are good. That's when the economic news is good. Look at what happens to the market. Anytime we have all the headlines about trade wars with China, anytime we've had bad news on the economy, the market flattens out. So you'll see we've had a tremendous rebound in confidence. Now that's not just consumer confidence, that's also the confidence of all of you here in this room. That's business confidence. We need both. We need consumers out spending, and consumers are spending. They're spending what they can. Consumers are spending, but we need businesses to regain confidence. So if I were to disaggregate that chart from business to consumer confidence, consumers are much more confident than everybody else in this room. What we need are you all to say, boy, business is great. I'm going to go back and rehire all the people that I may have put on furlough. I'm going to actually expand my plant and equipment. We don't see that kind of business confidence just yet. We need to see that. We need to see that to keep this chart moving up. This is one of the charts that I told you that we're a little bit nervous about. Let me get a little closer to the screen to detail this. It's the S&P 500, all right? But if you could read that, it's just the 5 biggest stocks in the S&P 500 going back all the way to 1970, all right? So take a look at where we are right now. The 5 biggest stocks, hopefully you own all of them: Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. All right, those are the 5 stocks at the very top there. Take a look at 2000. The dot-com stocks got up to about 18% of the S&P 500. Right now, we're about 24%. Anybody that was investing back in the 70s, you might remember, the Nifty 50, or back in the early 80s, you'll remember the last peak. Those were the energy stocks. Having stocks peak and having them run like this is not all that rare. Unfortunately, it doesn't tend to end well for those stocks. The energy stocks, we all wanted to own Exxon back in 1980. Well, the energy stocks have done poorly ever since. We all wanted to own the dot-coms. Now, the technology worked out very well, but a lot of those stocks really cratered. If you own Amazon, how many people in here wish they owned Amazon from the IPO? In 2000, Amazon was down from the peak to the bottom 90%. All right, great company, but boy, Amazon got hammered back there in the dot-com days. So one of the reasons that I said earlier that we're a little bit nervous about the rally that we've had in the market is that it is so thin. It's really driven by 5 stocks. And let me just put an exclamation point on that. This is the market just this year That top line, those are the top 5 stocks. Again, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. As of the end of August, they're up 56%, just those 5 stocks. The S&P 500 at the end of August was up 9.7, let's say 10%. The other 495 stocks were actually up 0.5%. Right, so it really is almost a tale of two cities. If we look at this chart, it's actually an indicator for what's going on in the economy. All right, think about the companies that are succeeding. Those big 5 stocks. A lot of companies are out there all buying new technology. We're all going on Zoom. All companies are investing in technology. But if you're in the cruise industry, if you're in the restaurant industry, if you're in the hotel industry, if you're in the airline industry, you're part of that 495. So what this is, it's showing the dichotomy within the stock market. It's also a great illustration of what's going on in the economy right now. We're really having a real bifurcation. I know a lot of economists use the term, well, we're having a U-shaped recovery or a Nike swoosh-shaped recovery. One of the terms that we're seeing used an awful lot is that we're having a K recovery, that the economy's going like that you've got, there's a big debate about income inequality. You're seeing a lot of people, if you're a banker like Mike and me, you can still keep moving along. If you've got a business where you've got to bring lots of people together in close quarters, if you're a restaurant owner, you're struggling. So that we're really seeing a dichotomy right now, and that's not healthy. That's not healthy. We need that vaccine. To us, that's what's going to get the economy moving again. These are our forecasts, and I won't go into great detail on this, but you'll see if I was here 12 months ago, I probably would have had a 2.5% growth rate for this year. You'll see we're at negative 4.5%. We were, a couple of months ago, negative 6%. So the economy is actually doing a little bit better than we thought a couple of months ago, but we still think we'll be down. Global economy down. The number on here that we're probably most concerned with is that very bottom number, the price of oil. And you'll see we've got a pretty wide band, $25 to $65. All the other numbers there, I can put into my calculator, I can come up with the GDP forecast. The oil price is a political price, it's not really an economic price, and it really depends upon what the Saudis and the Russians want. We've seen, fracking in the U.S. has really slowed down. All right, most companies need about $50 a barrel, or close to 40 right now. $50 a barrel just to reinvest. So, fracking is slowing down in the U.S., and that was one of our big growth engines. If the Saudis and the Russians want that price to move up, the price will move up. All right, if they want it down, if they want it back down to 20, it will go down there. So it's really more of a political price than it is an economic price. I've got a couple of slides on the election. I thought we might have a little bit of Q&A on this. And if you can read this, you'll see the stock market is up 8.9% in the average during election years. It's up 8.1% in the years where we don't have an election. Right? The market tends to, the headlines will bounce around quite a bit. Well, one point I'd love to make. In 2016, just a few years ago, a lot of strategists put together, and we probably put together, the Trump versus the Clinton portfolio. All right? And if you had the Trump portfolio, remember Donald Trump was saying he's going to get the economy growing faster than 4%. So that Trump portfolio was really a cyclical portfolio, more a value portfolio. You bought industrial stocks, you bought banks, you wanted to see the stocks that did really well in the economy. The Clinton portfolio was still growing, but it was a slower growth portfolio. So the Clinton portfolio had lots of growth stocks in it. So before the election, we figured Hillary Clinton was going to win, so we had a growth tilt on in our portfolios. Well, election came, and from the election day to December 31 in 2016, the Trump portfolio went through the roof. We were sitting there going, oh my God, boy, did we blow it. We've got the wrong portfolio. But we started to take a look at the bickering going back and forth between Congress and the White House. And from January 1, 2017 to today, Trump won the election, but it was the Clinton portfolio that won. It was the growth portfolio that won, because we never got to that 4% growth. We basically had a little spurt, and then we went back to about 2.5%. One of the things we're debating right now is, let's say, again, the thought is Joe Biden, right now he's ahead in the polls. We probably have a 50-50 room here, so I don't want to upset half the room, but it looks like right now Joe Biden's going to win. The two portfolios, if you talk to Goldman Sachs or any of the big firms, the Trump portfolio is still that value portfolio. The Biden portfolio is still the growth portfolio. The two portfolios are coming together a little bit better, but the Biden portfolio has been ahead recently. One of the things we're debating is that, let's say Joe Biden wins, you would think, okay, the growth portfolio will do well. Could that value portfolio actually do well, because it's so incredibly cheap right now? It's lagged dramatically. So we're debating that right now, but I guess the point that I would make is, let's say we had perfect vision as to who is going to win in November. I will tell you that predicting then what the market is going to do is incredibly difficult, and I wouldn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time on it. We are taking a look at their policies, but generally, I'll show you, this is a great chart. Generally, no matter who wins, Democrat or Republican, incumbent or challenger, after the election, the market does well. That dark blue line up there is what happens when the incumbent loses. So if you take a look at it, it normally peaks around Labor Day, and look what happens. From Labor Day to mid-October, the market starts going down. This year, what's happened? The market peaks, I think, September 2nd. Guess what? We've started to move down. So the market is basically telling you it looks like Donald Trump is going to lose. We're having a traditional market, but generally after the election, the market does well. The blue line is, the light blue line is if the incumbent wins. Everybody says, okay, I'm all set, I'm positioned well, we're okay. And that green line is what we're doing now. So again, I don't want to say that there's any guarantee here. The only thing that we're trying to communicate to clients is that after the election, the dust settles. Whether your candidate won or not, you at least know what the policies are. You can plan, you can invest, and you can move forward, and the market tends to do well. All right. Well, right now, we're almost tracing that dark blue line pretty perfectly. Last couple of slides. This, remember I talked about that Trump versus Clinton portfolio? All right. Well, if you take a look, that blue line there, the dark blue line, that's 2016. So again, toward the end of the summer, it looked like Hillary Clinton had the election locked up. As we got closer and closer to the election, no, you know what? The portfolio started to come together. The Clinton portfolio was still ahead. Well, right now, if I were to update this chart, that red line is coming down. So even though the Biden portfolio, the growth portfolio is doing well, it's starting to slow down, and we're coming together. We're normal, but I would think we'll probably end up somewhere to where the Clinton portfolio was. A little bit of an edge to Joe Biden. That seems to be what people are talking about right now. So that's the last of my slides. I think I kept this right on target. If there are a couple of things that I'd love to leave you with when it comes to what we're forecasting for the market. We think next year will be good, but unless we have the vaccine, we really are not going to get back to where we are. I know, I think the president has said, we could have a vaccine before the election. Well, we may have some medical professionals here, but the discovery, the creation of the vaccine is one thing. The development and getting the doses out to all of us to take is going to take months. So we're probably not going to have a vaccine that we can all go into CVS and get until well into 2021. So we're anticipating, still a growth economy, but a very slow growth economy until we can get back to that phase. So, I know from a business standpoint, that impacts businesses very, very differently across the board. If you're in a technology business right now, I can tell you, People's Bank, Mike and I, we're talking about the Zoom calls. We're investing a tremendous amount of money in technology, upgrading all of our systems, because I'm doing board meetings with clients right now on Zoom, and a lot of them like it. I think we're going to continue doing this. We're going to, our business model is going to be changing. So using technology is going to continue. So if you're in that business, well, you're doing very, very well. You're supplying us. But, you know, again, if you're more of a business relying on bringing lots of people together in close quarters, movie theaters, restaurants, whatever, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time. So let me stop there because I'd love to have some Q&A. And remember, there will be a test on one of the slides that I showed you. And he's got lovely gifts. You know, I saw some pretty nice cars out there. I don't think we're giving your car away, but he's got some very nice gifts. So let me stop there, and I'd love to. Again, this is fantastic for me. I learn an awful lot from people that are actually running businesses rather than talking to other economists. So I'll open it up. Yes.
What would be your outlook for the office rentals when you look at big cities or even Hartford, where they're empty or partially empty, and you just alluded to the fact that your model will change. What's the outlook in that overall?
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question so people in Zoom can hear. So George asked, what is your outlook on the cities and the office rentals?
As Mike mentioned, I'm doing a presentation in about a month for our commercial real estate lenders. So this is a big topic, and we've got a huge office in New York and a huge office in Boston. And if you read the Wall Street Journal, nobody's ever going to work in New York or Boston again. Well, I don't think that's going to happen for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think how we work in Boston and New York will change. All right, and you know, I live in the town of Fairfield. Where our real estate market is booming for the first time in years, with a lot of New Yorkers moving out, you know, people, you know, buying homes, not just renting, but they're buying homes. So, you know, there is a change, there are people leaving. But I will tell you, and McKinsey just put out a great paper on this. You know, think about the businesses of the future. Think about the businesses that are booming in New York and Boston. They're not manufacturing businesses. They're businesses built on intellectual capital. They're businesses built on bringing people together. And you saw JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, one of the, you know, very respected business leaders, basically said, I need my people back in New York. You know, Zoom calls are great, you know, conference calls are great, but we're not getting together building our business. So I know, you know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, we're going to leave the cities and everybody's going to, you know, work from their basement. I don't think that's going to happen. I do think, you know, the cities will do well, but they really need to focus on how do we bring people together, how do we keep that intellectual capital blossoming, and then how do we also, you know, maybe let them work a couple of days from home or be on the road. So I think business will change, but you know, the headlines in the Journal and the New York Times are, I think they're being overdone. I think they're being overdone. You know, we're believers in really, you know, if you think about the Northeast, you know, I might have made this point at a meeting in the past. You know, it's easy to beat up the Northeast economy. You know, boy, look at how well the South is doing. Look at how well California is doing. Nobody wants to come to New England. If you think about the Northeast economy, it's an intellectual capital economy. You know, congratulations, everybody here. You've all got kids. You've raised some pretty smart kids. You know, Connecticut is one of the leaders in college graduation rates. And not only that, we attract some of the smartest people around the country. So building those businesses based on smart people getting together, sharing ideas, that's the seed corn for the economy in New England. So we want to see New York and Boston prosper. So did I answer your question? Is that it?
Very well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And again, I'll be doing a call with our commercial lenders because that's a big question that they've got. You know, the people that we lend to in New York. Yeah. You know, that is, go ahead, sorry.
The question is that the Fed has signaled they're a little bit more comfortable with increasing their inflation rate. John, how does that have you perhaps changed some of your predictions?
You know, two things. We are investing for what we believe will happen, and that's probably not what the Fed wants to see. The Fed has been trying, you know, for the last 10 years to basically do what they're trying to do, get inflation up, and they haven't been successful. So what they're basically doubling down. To get inflation up, to get the economy moving, you need banks to lend. Now, I know that might sound self-serving, I'm a banker, but what the Fed has done, if you take a look at bank balance sheets are fantastic right now. You know, a lot of those PPP loans that they came in, the capital came in and it went into money market funds. If interest rates are at zero, there isn't a whole heck of a lot of incentive for banks to lend. The spread is so incredibly narrow that you're not seeing that money that the Fed is creating going back into the economy. The money that the Fed is creating is basically coming into my world. You know, where we're seeing inflation is in the stock market. We're seeing financial assets, their prices being driven up, not the prices for the, shirts and t-shirts and washers and dryers. So we're seeing inflation, but it's in the financial world, not in the real world. And, unfortunately, I think what the Fed is doing is probably going to continue that cycle for a while longer. To really accomplish what the Fed wants to see, we actually need to see rates move up, and you need to see banks lending, because that is going to get the economy going. One of the concerns that we have is that, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So all the people that, friends of ours that are retired that were thinking, this is great, I'm going to be able to get 4 or 5% on my bond portfolio, and I'll have stocks, I'll have a nice balanced portfolio. Well, right now, the 10-year Treasury at 70 basis points is forcing a lot of people, maybe a lot of us in this room, maybe a lot of our friends, to say, all right, I'm not getting the return on the bond market, so therefore, what do I need to do? I need to put more money into the stock market. So that 50-50 portfolio is now becoming the 60-40. The 60-40 is becoming the 80-20. So that concerns us, because one of the things that we're doing is we're looking at our clients and we're saying, wait a minute, when we sat down with you, we took a look at the amount of risk that you wanted to take, and that 50-50 portfolio made sense. If you go to the 70-30 or the 80-20, do you understand the amount of risk that you're taking, especially with stock prices where they are? So I'd say two things. Number one, we don't think what the Fed is going to do is going to accomplish their goal, getting inflation up. And number two, it's forcing people like us to take more risk in the market to achieve our goals. So in both of those situations, both of those scenarios, we don't think the Fed is really doing the right thing. And I have a lot of respect for Chairman Powell. I think he's done a great job. Bernanke did a great job. Yellen did a great job. They really have done very well. But I think what they're doing is probably a little bit too much. Yeah. Yes.
Question about debt and deficit. We've had issues with government spending an enormous amount of money in the past, but because of COVID, we've gone to the next level.
Yeah.
Long term, how do you see that impacting both our economy in the United States and then globally?
Yeah.
And how does that impact your investment strategy? And then how does it impact someone like myself?
Sure.
Okay, so the question is that we have seen a lot of investment from the federal government, even the state government, and so how does that impact that type of investment?
Scott, would you mind taking one step back so we can get you on the microphone a little bit back?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, great. It was making a whining noise, so I'm trying to stay a little far away. So I'll try to get the right distance. If you travel down to Bridgeport and you stand on the beach there and you look directly across at the island where I grew up, you'll see Stony Brook University. It's the State University of New York, and there's a professor there, Stephanie Helton, who is probably the leading academic, she's the leading academic on a national basis in something called modern monetary theory, MMT. You'll see those initials in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal all the time. And basically what she has said is that if you issue debt, and if you issue debt and you're able to print your own currency, go ahead and print. Go ahead and run the printing presses, because guess what? You know, when you have to pay, you have to pay down the bonds, just, you know, run the printing presses again. Now that's an exaggeration, but basically that's modern monetary theory. As long as you've got your own currency, run the deficit up as high as you want. Now, you know, perhaps I'm a victim of my own history, but I grew up in the 1970s when inflation was at 13%. You know, I remember how painful it was when Paul Volcker had to break the back of inflation. If you remember the 1981 and 82 back-to-back recessions. So I understand that, and I think, you know, there's a whole, you know, maybe a lot of us in this room remember the 1970s. There's a whole generation now of people that have only grown up when inflation's not a problem. So guess what? Let's just run the printing presses. So it's going to be an issue. Unfortunately, just like you've seen in Argentina. Remember, I was on CNBC about 2 years ago, and I was with Steve Leisman, their economist, and we were talking about who were the crazy people that were buying these 100-year Argentine bonds. Argentina goes bankrupt basically every 15 years. So why would you buy these bonds? Well, guess what? 2 years later, Argentina goes under, and the bonds have gone down dramatically in value. Well, you know, we've seen this, and unfortunately, it will probably only become a problem. And I keep telling my kids, make sure you vote. It will probably only become a problem when it's too late here in the U.S. You know, we'll be able to, you know, the world is gobbling up U.S. bonds. You know, we're paying 70 basis points. You go to Europe, they're actually negative rates. So our 70 basis point is actually very attractive. So, you know, it's a problem. Unfortunately, it won't really bite us. You know, hopefully, you know, it doesn't bite us for quite some time, but it will bite us. We're not believers in issuing this debt. I don't know where the wall is. I mean, I think I've been writing strategy.
The joys of having an in-law.
Hopefully you got that on camera.
Now, Michael said that John's bringing the house down. John said?
Is that good?
Okay.
All right. Good. There we go. Thanks for alerting me. So anyway, debt's a problem. Maybe one more question.
Yep. Well, some people had given us questions when they wrote in, and you've touched about most of them. One of them is, what in our economic future concerns you the most?
Well, debt number one. But I'd say, and you know, again, I hate to get political, but I know it's debated quite a bit. The bifurcation in our society, you know, the whole income inequality, and you know, again, we could have a great debate here, but if you think about, you know, the 1940s, 50s, 60s, I think it's important as an economy that everybody feels like they've got a stake in the game, that a rising tide lifts all boats. So whether, you know, again, whether you're somebody in Fairfield and you know you're working in any one of the businesses along Main Street, or you're a banker at People's Bank or wherever, I think we all want to see, you know, that, boy, I'm working hard, I'm doing well, and my family's got a shot. So I think that if there's a theme that's might not be an economic theme, but it's a social theme, and I think having that strong society, a strong economy is key. So I'd love to see something happen there.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
Obviously, right now, our college universities really struggling.
Yes.
high, so what is your opinion on how do we continue educating our
Sure.
society?
Sure. Well, you heard me state earlier, our asset here in New England, we're not fracking. Our asset is intellectual capital. We got lots of smart people. That's it. So, if there's an area of the country that needs that, this is it. This is our oil well. UConn and Yale and Housatonic Community College. I've made presentations down in Fairfield County about the community colleges, and one of the trends that I think is very helpful is if again, I live in Fairfield, and every June, when the kids graduate, what do? They've got an article there about, oh, here are all the kids that are going to four-year colleges. They never talk about the kids that are going to go to Housatonic Community College. Let me just give you one example of this. If you go to Housatonic, and they've got a whole program on advanced manufacturing, and the kids that are in that program might not have graduated on time. They might have, maybe it took them a little extra time, or maybe they had to go get a GED. The kids that get in that program, in a couple of years, they come in, when they graduate, the average person is making $65,000 a year. So I went on a tour of their facility in Bridgeport. Then they took me over to another area and said, all right, here are all the kids that we're training to repair all of these advanced manufacturing machines. They average $75,000 a year at 4 years after. So one of the things that I hope we see is that, we don't just emphasize going out and getting a four-year college degree, that we see a whole spectrum. Because if I'm an employer, and I've had the chance to work with some of the people at Yale, and Yale was doing a great job here. They're really trying to become a venture capital firm to say, we've got these smart researchers, but it could be a young man, a young woman that has developed a drug. Well, if they're going to start a business in Connecticut, they need other engineers, they need people that can work the machines, they can build, they need an entire spectrum of people from an educational standpoint that can do that, that can help produce that, to keep that business here. If you go up to Worcester, Massachusetts, along Route 9, which is basically the post road of mid-Massachusetts, it's a biotech corridor. And the people in Worcester, when I make the presentations, they say, guess what? None of the drugs that we see that we're producing here were invented in Worcester. They were all invented down in Cambridge. And some smart scientist at MIT or Harvard or one of the schools down there that invented something, and they said, rather than go to South Carolina, rather than go to California, I can go to Worcester. And I can get an entire spectrum of people on the education side. So I agree with you completely. If there's an area that needs well-educated people, and we need to figure out how we can pay for that, we all benefit from that when those companies stay here. So that is our seed corn, without a doubt. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I'll stop there.
John, thank you so much.
All right.
For an amazing presentation. As far as the giveaways, Rose had drawn maybe, you could say backpacker, you're back here, that was Eric Modio. So we got two more hats, people's wealth management hats, and if you want to go through your question, or your, I don't know if it's a trivia question, John, but
All right.
we will give away two hats.
The question is,
I was already negotiated on one hat, but okay, so I already lost one of the three.
who's brave enough to say they can name everybody in this eight, all 9 people? First person to raise their hand. Who can name all 9 people? I think you can see them.
Are they rowing?
Yes.
I'll give you a hint. Elizabeth Warren is the coxswain. Anybody else?
If I got closer.
Yeah, I can't see the picture.
And Rose, we still have handouts of the presentation. Correct? So we have plenty of handouts up front on your way out.
I think they can't see it.
Anybody want to take a shot?
They can't
They
see
can't see it.
Oh, so all right. Well, I'll go over. I'll read them off. And we had some fun. Our marketing team loved this, putting this together. This is actually the U.S. Olympic 8, and they just pasted different photos on here. But you've got Trump, you've got Xi Jinping, you've got Putin, you've got Biden, You've got Mr. Sanders, Bernie Sanders. Anybody know who's behind Bernie in 3 seats?
What's his job?
That's Mr. Powell. He's the fellow we were talking about. You've got Boris Johnson, guy who just, if I could buy him a comb. And then you've got Angela Merkel in the bow seat there. So that's our 8. And it was interesting though, I just wrote the names down for the marketing people and I said Powell, and they put Colin Powell in there. And I said, oh no. But I thought it was good that they don't know, who our Fed chairman is. So that was good. But those are that's the 8. So I'll let you decide who gets the.
Okay, well, why don't we say whoever wants a hat.
That's right. There. Excellent golf hat.
So if anybody wants a hat on the nice serious hats. If anybody wants a hat on the way out, let me know. I do want to say, if anybody would like to get on John's mailing list, okay, to provide your email address to Rose, she will get it either to me or John will get you on the mailing list. John has some really good stuff that comes out, as does the entire wealth management team, so it's really
I
insightful.
just finished our economic outlook yesterday, so that's out. I quote St. Augustine in there, so we're trying to be a little intellectual to get a challenge. Yeah.
So with that, Rose, Amy, thank you so much. Amy, I don't know if you have any concluding remarks, but thank you so much for what a wonderful breakfast.
Start with, I would like to be on that mailing list. I spent the day listening to you. I studied economics in college for a while. We have I believe, a nice little Farmington mug.
Oh.
I'll put it 6 feet away from you.
Thank you very much.
And we hope you come back many times, John. It's good to hear, and things are quirky. The more information we have, the better. So thank you very much. I also have 2 kids who row crew, so I got the.
Oh, there we go.
Thank everyone for coming. This is a wonderful turnout. We weren't sure if there were going to be 3 or a full room like we have today. It's wonderful seeing everyone. Again, we have a fantastic team in Farmington led by Rose. Thank you. There's a lot of work that turns out to be this, so we thank you for your time. Farmington Club did a wonderful job. Hopefully we'll be seeing everyone again soon. Stay safe. We're going to have an interesting winter. Wear your masks and get outside as much as you can. So thank you so much.